Hello, Trickies and Trickers. Well, it's time to look at the final episode of Season 1 of Deep Space Nine, which is also the final episode of I'll be doing not just for the day, but also for this year. So anyway, let's take a look at In the Hands of the Prophets. Chief Miles O'Brien walks with his wife Keiko along the promenade to the school where she teaches students on the station. They discuss Bajoran culture, a topic Miles learned about from Neela, his Bajoran assistant. At the school, Keiko teaches her class about the science of the Bajoran wormhole and the aliens that live inside it. This scientific view is different from the religious approach taken by the Bajorans, who believe the wormhole is a legendary celestial temple inhabited by their prophets, whom they worship as gods. Her class is led by one of Bajora's spiritual leaders, Vedek Gwyn. Gwyn questions why Keiko doesn't teach Bajoran religion in her classroom. Afterwards, Keiko reports the incident to Commander Benjamin Sisko. When Sisko asks Gwyn about the dispute, she says there may be consequences if Keiko refuses to teach religion. Meanwhile, Miles discovers an important engineering tool is missing, but is distracted when he and Neela discover the remains of a Starfleet ensign. Bum. Outside the school, Gwyn and a group of Bajorans protest Keiko's teaching methods. Gwyn offers Keiko a solution. All she has to do is simply stop teaching about the wormhole. When Keiko refuses to accept Gwyn's proposal, Gwyn leads the Bajoran parents to take their children out of school. Sisko visits Vedek Borelli for advice on the problem. Borelli opposes Gwyn's views, but he cannot support Sisko as he's attempting to become the next Kai, the leader of the Bajoran religion. Sisko returns to DS9S for help from Major Kira Nerys, but she also refuses to help. Meanwhile, Odo and Dr. Julian Bashir finish investigating the remains of the Starfleet ensign Miles and Neela found earlier. They discovered that the ensign had been murdered by a phaser when he became aware of someone tampering with the runabout security controls. Later, an explosion occurs inside the empty school, destroying it. Aw, that sucks. Sisko confronts Gwyn, blaming her actions for increasing the risk of violence on the station. Neela meets with Gwyn, revealing that the two have been working together. Plot twist! She informs Gwyn that her escape plan with the runabout will no longer work. Gwyn tells Neela to continue with the plan, even if it means Neela must sacrifice herself. Borelli arrives at the station to help, and at the same time, Miles and Lieutenant Jadzia Dax discover a hidden subprogram on the station's computer created by Neela. The program controls the time delay of force fields running from the promenade to the runabouts. They alert Sisko, who was nearby, just as Borelli and Gwyn begin to address the crowd of Bajorans on the promenade. Sisko searches the crowd just in time to see Neela raising her phaser at Borelli. Sisko tackles Neela to the ground and saves Borelli's life. Kira suggests that the assassination attempt was planned by Gwyn to secure her position as the new Kai, but Neela insists she was working alone. Kira later apologizes to Sisko and agrees with his earlier sentiment about Gwyn's actions. Yeah, that's what I would also do. So anyway, let's look at the production of this episode. Prior to the scripting of In the Hands of the Prophets, a crossover episode was considered with the crew of the Enterprise from Star Trek The Next Generation. However, this idea was dropped in favor of an episode which would end the season on a religious note similar to Emissary, the series premiere. During the writing of the episode, executive producer Michael Piller was concerned that it was not going to be as good as the previous episode, Duet. Ira Steven Behr credited this as setting a challenge for the writing team which improved the episode. Quote, "It gave us even more grist for the mill than Duet did, and together they provided a great 1-2 punch to end the first season," end quote, Behr recalled. The episode marked the debut of Philip Anglim as Vedek Borelli and Louise Fletcher as Vedek Gwyn. Borelli and Gwyn became recurring characters throughout the rest of the series. Fletcher was best known for playing the role of Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, for which she received the Academy Award for Best Actress, the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Motion Picture Drama, and the BAFTA Award for Best Actress in a Leading Role. She did not have to read for the role of Vedek Gwyn, nor was she familiar with the Star Trek series or its heritage before accepting the role. Robin Christopher makes her appearance in this episode for the second and last time as Neela, first appearing in the previous episode, Duet. In the Hands of the Prophets is the third episode directed by David Livingston, With a budget larger than most of the other first season episodes, Livingston used more extras, which allowed him to create larger crowd scenes. Livingston's first location shoot took place during Borelli's sanctuary scene on Bajor. Filmed on location at Ferndale at Griffith Park, Los Angeles, Livingston found it difficult to shoot the scene due to the density of the foliage and access to the dell. The scene location previously appeared in the holodeck scenes used in Encounter at Farpoint, the pilot episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. Filmed in full scale, the school explosion used drywall around the interior of the set to protect it from the fire. Physical effects supervisor Gary Monak oversaw the explosion. The destruction surprised the cast as they were more used to optical effects in the series. Costume designer Robert Blackman created the Vedic costumes. Crew members suggested that Blackman based his Vedic hats on the form of the Sydney Opera House, but Blackman denied the design was deliberate. Interesting. So finally, let's look at the themes of this episode. In the Hands of the Prophets is the first episode in the series to examine the conflict between elements of the Bajoran religion and the secularism of Starfleet. Writer Robert Hewitt Wolfe says this episode maintains the consistency of Gene Roddenberry's vision for Star Trek. Quote, I have no argument with someone having a fundamentalist belief in Christianity or Islam or Judaism or Buddhism or anything else, but I do have a serious objection to people trying to impose their values on other people. And that's what this episode is about. No one has the right to force anyone to believe the things that they believe. One of the beautiful things about Gene Roddenberry's vision of IDIC, infinite diversity and infinite combinations, and that was one of the things that we really wanted to hammer home here. Sisko does everything he can not to impose his values on the Bajorans, but Vedic Gwen is determined to impose her values on everyone, end quote. Yeah, I really hate it when people try to, force their religious beliefs on me, and I'm just like, okay, that's cool, no, you believe what you want to believe, but let me believe what I want to believe, okay? Thank you. The episode showed the unwillingness of Sisko to accept his position as a religious figure within the Bajoran culture. This theme was first explored in Emissary, the pilot of the series. The ongoing theme for Bajoran politics and religion began within the Hands of the Prophets, and ran through the rest of the series. Wolfe was raised as a Catholic, and he attributes the religious theme of the episode to this influence, as well as his interest in history. He compares the religious intrigue of the story to the history of Catholicism in the 15th and 16th century, a time when members of various families jostled for power to become pope. When asked to describe the character of Wynne, Louise Fletcher said, quote, think of the Pope in space, except she's like an ancient pope. For the old days when popes were ruthless and powerful and exerted their powers and fought wars and did all kinds of naughty things, end quote. Matt Rory in Screen.com said the writers examined the politics of the Bajoran religion by, quote, planting pious but open-minded Bajorans like Kira against the Orthodox, intolerant fundamentalist majority, as represented by Kai Wynne, who was willing to bomb schools and attempt assassinations on her political rivals to stay in power, end quote. Zach Handelin, in his review for the AV Club, compared the actions of this episode to the, quote, ideological battles which are fought over for what's appropriate in the classroom, end quote, in the United States. So overall, this episode is very, very, very interesting, and well, as the end of the first season, it's pretty nice, and again, the whole thing with about imposing one's religious view on other people is handled really well in this episode, and also the whole debate over science versus religion as well is also handled pretty well in this episode. So overall, I give In the Hands of the Prophets 5 warp cores out of 5. Well, tune in next year as we start taking a look at Season 2 with The Homecoming. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.